I was 22, the summer my father died. He passed on a Thursday in July, which felt wrong because July is supposed to be loud and warm and full of people staying out too late. My father was all of those things. He made noise when he walked into a room. He smelled like garlic and rosemary even on Sunday mornings. He had calluses on both palms from 40 years of working a kitchen, and he shook your hand like he meant it. The funeral was on a Saturday. My brother gave the eulogy. He cried in the right places. Afterward, people kept telling me how lucky I was to have him, my brother, I mean. How strong he was. How much he looked like my father. I stood at the edge of the reception and ate a small plate of food that someone else had catered and thought about how my father would have hated every single bite of it. My father's name was Raymond. He built his catering company from a single rented kitchen in 1987. By the time I was old enough to help, it had 12 employees, 2 vans, and a client list that included 3 law firms, a hospital, and the mayor's annual holiday dinner. The company was called Hartwell Kitchen. Hartwell was our last name. It was supposed to mean something. My brother's name is Marcus. He is 5 years older than me. Growing up, Marcus was the one who got the new bike, and I got the repainted one. Marcus was the one who got the car on his 16th birthday. I got driving lessons and a bus pass. I never asked why. My father was not a cruel man, he was just a man who had been raised to believe that the eldest son inherited the center of gravity. My stepmother's name is Diane. She came into our lives when I was 11. She was careful around me in the early years, the way people are careful around something they don't fully understand yet. By the time I was a teenager, she had stopped being careful. I want to be accurate about this. Diane never screamed at me or hit me, or did anything that would show up on a police report. What she did was quieter. She would say things to my father in the evenings when they thought I was asleep. Things like, "She's always making things harder than they need to be." Things like, "Marcus is the one who actually wants to be here." She said them gently, the way you'd point something out to someone you were trying to help. My father was a good man, but he was tired a lot, and tired people hear what's easiest to hear. I worked in Hartwell Kitchen from the time I was 15. Not because I was told to, because I wanted to. I liked the pace of it, the pressure of it, the way a good event felt like a machine running clean. I studied business administration in college and wrote my senior thesis on succession planning in family-owned food service companies. My father read every page of it. He kept a copy in his desk drawer. 2 months before he got sick, he and I sat at the kitchen table on a Sunday afternoon, and he told me that he was going to split the company equally between Marcus and me. He said he had talked to his attorney. He said he wanted to make sure things were done right. He put his hand over mine on the table and said, "You've earned it, sweetheart. More than you know." I have thought about that afternoon more times than I can count. My father was diagnosed in April. He was gone by July. The cancer moved faster than anything I have ever seen move in my life. The attorney's office was downtown, in a building with glass doors and a parking garage that charged $8 for the first hour. Marcus drove. Diane sat in the front seat. I sat in the back and watched the city pass through the window and told myself that whatever happened next, my father had loved me. That part was finished and nothing could undo it. The attorney's name was Gerald Whitmore. He was a thin man in his late 60s with a gray suit and glasses on a chain around his neck. He read the will in a measured voice, the way people read things they've read many times before and stopped feeling. Marcus received the catering company, the company vehicles, all business assets, and the family home. I received a savings account with $11,000 in it. I didn't understand at first. I actually looked at Gerald Whitmore and waited for him to continue. He didn't continue. He set the papers down and folded his hands. I said, "I don't understand." Marcus said, "Dad updated his will in February. February was 2 months before the diagnosis. 1 month before my father told me he was going to split the company equally." I said, "Asterisk. He told me asterisk." Marcus said, "I know what he told you." He said it quietly, almost kindly. "He changed his mind, Claire." That's allowed. I looked at Diane. She was looking at the window. Gerald Whitmore asked if I had any questions. I had nothing but questions, but none of them were the kind he could answer. When we got back to the house that afternoon, I found an envelope on the kitchen counter with my name on it. Inside was a document. It had a header from Gerald Whitmore's office. It said that I, Claire Ann Hartwell, voluntarily waived all future claims to Hartwell Kitchen LLC and its associated assets. My signature was at the bottom. I had never seen that document before in my life. I stood in the kitchen for a long time. I could hear Marcus moving around upstairs. I could hear Diane in the backyard, talking to someone on the phone in a low voice. The refrigerator hummed. I stood there, and I looked at my signature, my full name, in my own handwriting, on a document I had never signed, and I felt something go very quiet inside me. Not grief, not rage, something quieter than both of those. The feeling of understanding, finally, exactly what had happened. I took photos of the document with my phone. Then I put it back in the envelope. Then I went upstairs and started packing. Diane appeared in the doorway of my bedroom while I was pulling clothes out of my closet. She leaned against the doorframe and watched me for a moment. Then she said, "I think it would be better for everyone if you gave yourself a few days before you made any decisions." I kept folding. I didn't look at her. She said, "This doesn't have to be a bad thing, Claire. You're young. You're smart. You can start fresh." I zipped my bag. I picked it up. I looked at her then, standing in the doorway of the room where I had grown up, in the house my father had built. I looked at her for long enough that she shifted her weight. Then I walked past her and down the stairs and out the front door. My best friend from college, a woman named Trisha, let me sleep on her couch. Her apartment was on the third floor of a building that smelled like someone's cooking at all hours, and the couch was too short for me, and I lay there every night for the first 2 weeks, with my feet dangling off the armrest, and stared at the ceiling, and made myself go through it one more time. The timeline, the document, the will that was changed in February, the signature that wasn't mine. I found an attorney through a legal aid organization. She was young, maybe 30, with a direct way of speaking that I appreciated. I showed her the photos. She looked at them carefully. She asked me questions about the timeline. Then she sat back and told me what I already suspected. That proving signature forgery in a probate case was expensive, slow, and uncertain. That the new will had been witnessed and notarized by Gerald Whitmore's office. That Marcus had the house, the company, the assets, and a document with my name on it. That fighting this would cost money I didn't have, and even if I won, it would take years. She said, "I'm not telling you it's impossible. I'm telling you what it will cost." I thanked her. I walked out of her office and stood on the sidewalk in the August heat and looked at the street. Then I went back to Trisha's apartment, sat down at her kitchen table, and made a list. The list had 2 columns. One was what I had. One was what I needed. What I had: $11,000, a business degree, 5 years of actual experience, running events, and managing vendor relationships for Hartwell Kitchen, and a level of anger that I had decided, somewhere on the sidewalk outside that attorney's office, to stop calling anger and start calling fuel. What I needed: income, stability, time. I got a job at a restaurant called Caldwell's, downtown, as a floor manager. The owner, a woman named Patricia, hired me after a 20-minute interview and told me I was overqualified, but that she'd rather have overqualified than underqualified any day of the week. I worked 6 days a week for the first year. I learned the restaurant side of the business, the way I had learned the catering side by being inside it, constantly, until I understood every pressure point. I put $800 a month into a savings account that I did not touch. I enrolled in a commercial real estate licensing course at night. Not because I had a plan yet, because I had looked at my father's business long enough to understand that the company was never the most valuable thing the building was. The property was. The asset that didn't depreciate with a bad quarter or a difficult client. The thing that sat there and compounded quietly, while everything else moved around it. I studied on my lunch breaks. I passed my exam the first time. I want to be clear about something. I did not spend those years consumed by what Marcus had done. I thought about it, of course I did, but I made a deliberate decision not to let it be the center of my life. What he had taken from me was real, and it was serious, and it was wrong. But I had watched people in my family, and in families around me, spend decades organized around a grievance, feeding it, keeping it warm. I did not want that to be the architecture of my life. What I wanted was simpler. I wanted to build something that was mine, completely mine, nothing with his name on it, nothing he could touch. I stayed at Caldwell's for 3 years. Patricia promoted me to general manager at the end of year 2. By year 3, I was managing purchasing, staffing, and vendor contracts, and the restaurant's profit margin had improved by 11%. Patricia started talking about opening a second location. I had saved a little over $60,000. The second location didn't happen because Patricia decided she was tired and wanted to retire to Asheville instead. She offered me first right of refusal on the restaurant. I told her I wasn't ready for that, not yet, not that particular property. But that conversation was the first time I understood, in a real and physical way, that these moments came around if you were paying attention. I left Caldwell's and took a position with a commercial property management firm. I spent the next 2 years learning from the inside how commercial leases worked, how property transactions were structured, how tenants and landlords negotiated, and what the leverage looked like from both sides of the table. I was good at it. I was very good at it. I did not contact Marcus during any of this. He called me once, about 8 months after my father's funeral, and left a voicemail that said he hoped I was doing okay, and that there was no reason for things to be weird between us. I listened to it twice. I did not call back. Diane sent a Christmas card the first year. I don't know why she did that. I put it in the trash without opening it. My father's chef's knife came to me unexpectedly. It was a Japanese knife, single bevel, that he had bought in 1994 and kept in a magnetic strip above the prep station at Hartwell Kitchen. He had taught me how to sharpen it when I was 17. When Marcus took over the company, he apparently did a full renovation of the kitchen space and had a dumpster brought in for the old equipment. One of the longtime employees, a woman named Rosie who had worked for my father for 11 years, called Tricia, who called me. I drove over on a Saturday morning and went through the dumpster and found it wrapped in a dish towel under a broken shelving bracket. I still have it. It lives in my kitchen, on a magnetic strip above my prep area. I don't know whether Marcus threw it away on purpose or didn't realize it was there. I decided it didn't matter. The property listing came across my desk on a Tuesday in October. I was at my desk at the property management firm, going through the week's listings, when I saw the address. It was a commercial building on the east side, a 2-story brick structure built in 1962, with a loading dock in the back and street parking in front. It had been owned by the same family for 30 years. The current tenants were a printing company on the second floor and a catering operation on the ground floor. The catering operation was Hartwell Kitchen. I read the listing twice. Then I sat very still for a moment. The building was listed at $840,000. Based on the current lease income, the cap rate was reasonable. The neighborhood had been appreciating steadily for 4 years. The printing company's lease had 2 years remaining. The catering company's lease, Hartwell Kitchen's lease, had 18 months remaining. I called my lender before I called anyone else. I had enough for a down payment. My credit was clean. My income was documented. My 2 years in commercial property management had given me enough professional standing to be taken seriously in the transaction. My lender said, "You want to move on this quickly?" I said yes. I made an offer the following week. There were 2 other interested parties. I came in strong, not reckless, but strong because I had looked at the numbers, and I knew what the building was worth, and I knew what I was willing to pay. My offer was accepted on a Friday afternoon. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the title company for about 10 minutes after the call. The sky was doing something interesting with the clouds. I watched it for a while. Then I called Tricia and told her. She screamed loud enough that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I laughed for the first time in what felt like a long time. Closing day was a Monday in December. Cold, gray, the kind of morning where everyone's breath shows. I wore a coat my father had given me the Christmas before he died, a dark wool coat with brass buttons. I don't know why I chose it. I didn't think about it until I was already in my car. I signed my name on the documents. My real signature. The one that was actually mine. The building was mine. Hartwell Kitchen's lease renewal was due in 60 days. As the new property owner, it was my responsibility to send the renewal terms. My property management firm handled the administrative side. I reviewed the terms carefully. I kept the rent increase modest, within market range, nothing aggressive. I was not interested in forcing them out. I was interested in something different. The renewal notice went out on a Wednesday. It was a standard document, formatted on my company letterhead, with all the usual legal language. The signature line at the bottom read, Claire A., Hartwell Property Owner, Hartwell Property Group LLC. My company, my name, his lease. I was told, secondhand, through a mutual acquaintance who had no idea about any of the history, that Marcus had called the property management firm twice after receiving the notice. The first call was someone asking to confirm the new ownership. The second call was Marcus himself, asking to speak with me directly. I was not available for that call. He sent an email 3 days later. The subject line was Claire. The body of the email was 6 sentences. He said he didn't know I had been in commercial real estate. He said he would have reached out sooner if he'd known we were going to be in a business relationship. He said he hoped we could talk. He said things didn't have to be difficult. He used the word family twice. I read it once. Then I forwarded it to my attorney with a note asking her to handle all future communications regarding the lease through proper business channels. I never replied to Marcus directly. There is a thing that happens, after years of building quietly, where the vindication when it finally arrives is not what you expected it to be. I had expected something loud. I had expected to feel something large and dramatic, the emotional equivalent of the dumpster fire my brother had made of my inheritance. What I felt instead was something much smaller, cleaner, like a knot finally releasing, like a breath you hadn't realized you were still holding. I drove past the building on a Saturday morning, about 3 weeks after the closing. I parked across the street. The Hartwell Kitchen van was in the loading dock, the same design it had always had, my father's font, the little sprig of rosemary in the logo corner, that my father had insisted on even when his first graphic designer told him it was too fussy. Marcus had kept the logo exactly as my father had designed it. I sat there for a while and thought about my father. The calluses on his palms. The way he shook your hand like he meant it. The Sunday afternoon at the kitchen table, his hand over mine, saying, "You've earned it, sweetheart." He had meant it. I believed that then and I believe it now. He had been outmaneuvered by people who were more careful about these things than he was. I couldn't give him back the ending he had planned. That was done. But I was sitting across the street from a building that had my name on the deed. The same building where Hartwell Kitchen operated. The same company that my father had built with 40 years of calluses and rosemary and caring about every single bite of food that left his kitchen. My name was on the deed. That was the part Marcus had not planned for. People sometimes ask me not about this situation specifically, but in general whether revenge is worth it. Whether the time and energy spent building toward a specific outcome is a healthy use of a life. I understand the question. I think about it genuinely. Here is what I know. I did not spend those years thinking about Marcus. I spent them thinking about what I wanted to build. The fact that what I built eventually intersected with his life in this particular way was, in some sense, beside the point. I would have wanted to own commercial property regardless. I would have wanted to be in this industry regardless. I would have chosen this kind of work regardless. The intersection was a consequence, not a goal. I think that's an important distinction. A goal organized around hurting someone puts them at the center of your life. A goal organized around building something puts you at the center of your life. The outcome can look similar from the outside. The inside is completely different. Diane, I have heard, moved to Florida 2 years ago. I don't know the details and I don't want them. Hartwell Kitchen renewed their lease. They are current on their payments. Our business relationship is handled entirely through my property management firm. I have not spoken to Marcus since the day I walked out of my father's house with a bag over my shoulder. I am 31 years old. I own 3 commercial properties. I am under contract on a 4th. I have a small team, people I trust, a business that I built from $11,000 and a couch too short to sleep on and a level of quiet that I taught myself to use like a tool. My father's knife is in my kitchen. I use it almost every day. I keep it sharp the way he taught me. That, more than the building, more than the lease with my name on it, more than any of it, that is the part that feels like him. The weight of the handle in my hand. The way it moves through an onion like there's nothing there at all. He taught me how to do that. Nobody can put that in a document. Nobody can forge that. I keep thinking about something one of my longtime clients said to me last year. After we closed on a particularly complicated property deal, she said, "You have a very unusual quality. You never seem rattled." I thought about how to answer that. I thought about the kitchen table in July, the envelope on the counter, my signature at the bottom of a document I had never seen, the too short couch, the dumpster behind the building that used to have my name on it. I said, "I learned early that the quietest response is usually the most powerful one." She nodded, like that was something she had already known and just needed to hear out loud. I believe it. I have built my entire life on it. There is a photo on my office wall. I took it myself, from across the street, on that Saturday morning. The Hartwell kitchen van in the loading dock. The brick building in the morning light. You can't see my name on the deed in the photo, obviously. You can't see anything in the photo except a building and a van and some gray December sky. But I know what I'm looking at when I look at it. And I think, somewhere, my father does too.